because you're looking at some slightly different angle for matters to do with vaccination in the United States.
Oh, absolutely. That comedian reminds me of George Carlin in the U.S., by the way, who told us we don't really have freedom, we have owners. A very good video for people to look up online. Anyway, yes, over Connecticut, we have a Associated Press report from early in August. Federal Appeals Court, the headline, upholds Connecticut law that eliminated the religious vaccination exemption. And I'll very briefly call attention to the ad to the side of that photograph, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But going on with this story, moving on from there, this is the beginning of this August 4th story. Associated Press, the great wire service of the United States, a federal appeals court upheld a 2021 Connecticut law that eliminated the state's longstanding religious exemption from childhood immunization requirements for schools and for colleges and for daycare facilities. This is very significant in and of itself. And I would point out before we read the next bit of text that as they develop the WHO treaty, the pandemic treaty, and the IHR regulations and the continual and very questionable updates of that instrument, those two things running on parallel tracks. When we see things like this, as that moves along at the WHO, it's of double concern because it's almost like they're trying to re-clamp down on people's rights and revisit some of those oppressions in a piecemeal fashion as they work on the pandemic treaty and those regs. There may not be a direct correlation, but I would argue there probably is. It's something that at the very least bears watching. But moving on to this next one, this decision comes about a year and a half after a lower court judge dismissed the lawsuit challenging the contentious law, which drew protests at the state capitol. Quote, this decision is a full and resounding affirmation of the constitutionality and legality of Connecticut's vaccine requirements. Constitutionality, huh? Okay. Vaccines save lives. This is a fact beyond dispute. Democratic Attorney General William Tong said in a statement, quote, the legislature acted responsibly and well within its authority to protect the health of Connecticut families and stop the spread of preventable disease. Pretty amazing there. Vaccines save lives as a blanket statement, as opposed to differentiating between different vaccines, which have different performance records. Anyway, that ad that we saw off to the side, and this is becoming extremely common in mainstream media reports about vaccines and vaccine-related matters, is from a huge pharmaceutical company. This one is called Boehringer Ingelheim, which I quite honestly had never heard of. It says, as of 2018, this is according to Wikipedia, Boehringer Ingelheim is one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, and it's the largest private one. 53,155 employees as of last year, 24.1 billion in revenues, founded way back in 1885 in Germany. These ads are very common on Politico, Associated Press, and various news outlets as they talk about vaccine-related matters. And this is a comment from the other side, the people that wanted that religious exemption. The same story here. We fully intend to seek review of this decision in the United States Supreme Court, the Supreme Court no less, to obtain equal justice for all children, not only in Connecticut, but in every state in the nation, according to Brian Festa, co-founder and vice president of We the Patriots USA. That was his statement. He said his group, which focuses on religious and medical freedom, parental rights, and other matters, disagrees with the court's conclusion that removing the exemption does not violate religious freedom under the First Amendment or the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection under the law. Certainly, you can say a lot of things about vaccines, but I cannot see how this decision can pass any kind of constitutional smell test. But we'll be watching to see how this develops. Now, this is the last item here on this report. Another curiosity, when I first went to open the headline to this report and read it, this pop-up ad came up. And as I would back out of it and keep going into the article, the same pop-up ad would continue to come up, this one from Moderna. So while the BBC is doing its thing, as you guys described in the beginning of the show, we have American-based media, Politico, Associated Press, and many others just festooned with pro-pharma ads, even while they report on COVID, vaccine-related matters, legal matters, and whatnot. So the bias is systemic here. It's institutionalized bias, and there's money flowing. So the standard legacy press really cannot be trusted at all at any level on these matters. But in the meantime, this Connecticut thing is a rather disquieting development as the pandemic treaty is developed. And again, we could be seeing a kind of piecemeal reinstitution of this oppression that we had during the COVIDocracy. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's the way the trend looks right now.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for that very interesting segment there. Well, of course, if we can't trust legacy media, we should be trusting new media. We'd like to say as UK Column, if you're not a subscriber at the moment, then please consider joining us. Not only can you get into the community and, of course, see us in Extra, but you are also supporting the work we do and helping us expand. And, of course, we encourage people to have a look in the shop for items that also supports UK Column. And an important thing is that all the information we're putting out is designed to be shared as far and wide as possible so that people can have at least some idea of what alternative viewpoints are and indeed the truth in many instances. Now, on the 8th of August, we've got a second interview with Andrew Bridgen coming out. Encourage people to tune into that. Amongst other things, Andrew talks about the climate of fear in Westminster controlling matters in the House. If it's not fear, it's attempt to buy people off if they dare have an alternative opinion. And a couple of interesting emails we've had in this one from Val, talking about checking the integrated care pathway. It was imported from Canada. Baroness Meaching is still trying to push assisted dying in the House of Lords, saying she has widespread public support. If that passes, my guess is we'll get the full Canadian system in the UK, and that could be what she's aiming for. This means certain members of the public will be asked by GPs if they wish help to terminate their lives. What a time to do this when the NHS is crumbling and operations delayed. Can you tell Debbie? Well, we've already told Debbie, and we're going to say a big thank you to Val for alerting us to this. Well, we've already mentioned the BBC.